Thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. The Indiana Jones movies have sort of a weird reputation. Raiders of the Lost Ark is thought of as one of the greatest films ever made. The Last Crusade is often thought of in much a similar way, with many fans even preferring it to Raiders. But whether you're looking at the critics or the die-hard fans, Temple of Doom and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull are usually ranked as the lowest in the franchise, with some refusing to even acknowledge their existence. Now, I'm not going to pretend that these movies are without their flaws, but I think that they're both largely great entries into the Indiana Jones canon that don't deserve nearly as much hate as they tend to get, particularly Temple of Doom, which I think is every bit as good as Raiders or The Last Crusade. One of the main things that people seem to forget about the franchise is that they were always designed as B-movies. They weren't trying to create something on par with Cecil B. DeMille or David Lean. They were trying to match the style and the tone of the 1930s Saturday morning serials, complete with over-the-top action, campy dialogue, and the cliché villains.
That might have been your arm, Mr. Bennett.
They had no idea how acclaimed or influential Raiders would go on to become, inspiring a new mold of action hero with humor and vulnerability that stood in stark contrast to other action heroes of the 1980s, or that this cheesy form of escapist entertainment would one day completely dominate the box office. They just wanted to make a tribute to the fun action movies of their youth, but with a technical prowess yet unseen in the genre. And it did the trick. General audiences in 1981 had never seen anything like it before. It became the highest grossing film of that year and even earned 8 Academy Award nominations, taking home 4 wins as well as 1 additional Special Achievement Award for its sound design. All in all, not bad for a B-movie. The same could not be said for Temple of Doom, however. It still turned a considerable profit and still took home an Oscar for visual effects, but critics and fans alike felt that it didn't live up to the hype. Where was Marion, or Sala, or Marcus? Why was it all so dark and violent, and what was with all of the racial stereotyping? First off, I'm honestly shocked by how many people seem to miss the fact that Temple of Doom is a prequel, set 1 year before the events of Raiders. George Lucas explained the reason being that they didn't want to use the Nazis again, and they wanted to follow a similar formula as Bond with a different leading lady in every picture. So setting the film before Raiders took care of all of that, and allowed it to become its own entry in the Adventures of Indiana Jones, which was always the intention for the franchise. It wasn't like Star Wars with a grand overarching narrative, it was supposed to feel like the weekly serials of the 1930s, with our hero going on many different adventures. As far as it being too dark or too violent, that's actually one of my favorite things about Temple of Doom. I think it's such a bold choice that makes this chapter feel completely unique to the other films in the series, and something you would never expect from a franchise like this today. In a world where every sequel tries to capitalize on the success of the first film by falling into fan service, I think it's great that they took such a unique direction for the film. It does get dark with black magic and child slavery and ritual sacrifice, but that only creates a more triumphant final act. And frankly, the final 40 minutes or so of Temple of Doom are arguably the best in the franchise. The liberation of the slaves, the conveyor belt fight with the voodoo doll, the minecart chase sequence, the rope bridge, pure Indiana Jones action at its absolute finest.
Oh! What are you doing?
I can see how people would be irritated by Willie Scott, but frankly, can you imagine being in her shoes? This pampered club singer is all of a sudden taken to the jungles of India with every sort of creepy, crawly, slithering creature you could imagine. I think we'd all be terrified and uncomfortable having to go through what she does. But I can see how some wish it was toned down at least just a little bit for the audience's sake, but the hate for Short Round never made any sense to me. He's a great sidekick, he always has Indy's back, he can hold his own in a fight, and he can be absolutely hilarious. One of the biggest criticisms of the film was its offensive portrayal of Indians, but I always thought that was an unfair criticism. The whole point is that this is a cult that has taken over the Indian royalty. The Maharaja of Pankot was brainwashed just like most of his other followers, and even Indiana Jones himself at one point. The whole reason Indy is there in the first place is to help to retrieve the Sankara stones that were stolen from a local village, and to rescue the children who were taken prisoner. Meaning that this black magic cult isn't supposed to represent the whole of the country, but a small, corrupted minority. You can then definitely argue that it falls into the whole white savior trope, but this is Indiana Jones we're talking about, and if you don't have a problem with him saving the day from the Nazis, I don't think it should be a problem for him to save the day from cultist Hindus either. Honestly, sometimes it feels like the Temple of Doom critics don't really remember Raiders as well as they think. Oh, the villains are campy. Really? Did you forget about this guy?
Good evening, Fräulein.
The bar is closed.
We are not thirsty.
Some of the special effects look really bad. What, like Raiders didn't have that problem as well? Well, all the bad guys are just negative stereotypes. Because this is such a loving portrait of the German people. Well, it's too dark. There's not enough humor.
We are going to die!
I beg to differ. I'm not saying you have to like Temple of Doom as much as Raiders of the Lost Ark, but I think that if you consider it to be a bad movie, you should probably reassess why you think Raiders is such a good movie. Both have great humor, great action, over-the-top villains, and supernatural twists on old world mythology, with incredible photography and music, and our beloved hero on a non-stop thrill ride. What's not to love? But with the film receiving so much backlash, they decided to play it safe with The Last Crusade by basically rehashing everything that worked in Raiders, with the beloved sidekicks, the Nazis searching for another Christian artifact in the desert, but this time with a twist. His dad is along for the adventure.
Junior? Yes, sir.
The Last Crusade is a great Indiana Jones film, don't get me wrong, but it feels like a retread to me, and I would have loved to see the franchise follow its original episodic intentions. For instance, one of the original story outlines for the third film involved a haunted mansion, to give you an idea of the sort of campy adventures that they were originally going for. And this is why Kingdom of the Crystal Skull seemed to come out of nowhere for most fans, but for the true die-hard indie fans, it made perfect sense. If the originals paid homage to the adventure serials of the 1930s, and if you have to move the timeline forward to account for Harrison's age, then it seems like a no-brainer to pay homage to the adventure B-movies of the 1950s, where it was all about the Red Menace, usually interpreted through a Martian invasion of some kind. And just like the other three films, it relies on real-world politics and mythology. The Russians were interested in exploring mind control possibilities, and theories of ancient aliens contributing to highly advanced old-world civilizations have been around for centuries. So it carries on the tradition of honoring adventure serials of their respective time period, while still allowing for the globe-trotting, treasure-hunting adventure that we've come to expect from Indiana Jones, complete with the humor and the action set pieces that have become trademarks of the series.
Damn, I thought that was closer.
Obviously, I'm with most fans in thinking that a few scenes took things too far, and there are enough flaws to hold the film back from being truly great. I think it was ill-advised to break tradition by starting the movie with a bunch of random teenagers instead of Indy. I think Mutt was underdeveloped and doesn't contribute much to the story other than making old man jokes and justifying Marion returning to the franchise. I think they should have toned down the CG quite a bit. It seems like the magnetic power of the skull changes every single time it's on screen, and all in all, it just doesn't quite hold up to the other three. But in spite of all of that, I still think it's a really fun movie. Many of the action set pieces were incredibly satisfying. I found a lot of the humor to be thoroughly enjoyable. I loved most of the new characters they introduced, and Harrison Ford is undeniably excellent, as always, despite his old age. And it still feels like it has all of the staples that made the other three films so great. I definitely think it's the weakest of the four, but to be fair, that's some pretty stiff competition. And when the series was in hibernation for 20 years, it's only natural for it to suffer from all of that time waiting. Ultimately, I think that all four Indiana Jones films have something different to offer. They're all fun and exciting in their own way, And I think that if you can watch Temple of Doom or Kingdom of the Crystal Skull again, understanding that they're campy on purpose, cliche by design, just like the rest of the series, I think you can appreciate them more for what they are. Not masterful works of art, but pure popcorn fun with our favorite archaeologist. This video was sponsored by Squarespace. If you're looking to build your own website but know nothing about web design, Squarespace is the perfect option. They have many fantastic designer templates that offer a starting point for you to build a blog or an online store with nearly limitless customizable options to make your site feel unique to you. If you head over to www.squarespace.com/filmradar, you'll get a free trial as well as 10% off of your first purchase. I had tried other sites in the past that offered something similar, but nothing that was as easy to use and nothing that ended up looking even half as good. Whether you write a personal blog, movie reviews, or you share your photography or designs, Squarespace has a wide variety of templates that can present your work in a sleek and professional manner. And being an all-in-one platform that never requires you to download patches or upgrades, with a customer support service that's available every hour of every day, all year long, they're making sure that your experience is as hassle-free as possible. So again, if you would like to sign up, the link is www.squarespace.com/filmradar, where you'll get a free trial and 10% off of your first purchase. Thank you for watching. I've always been a big fan of the Indiana Jones movies, and while I understand the criticism towards Temple of Doom or Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, I don't think they're nearly as bad as people make them out to be. Certainly with Temple of Doom, I think it was just an issue that it was just really different, and I don't think people were expecting that. And then with Crystal Skull, I think most of it was just fan expectation getting in the way. I think if you revisit it and if you watch it with an open mind and kind of consider the influences and the roots of the franchise, I think that it stands up as a great Indiana Jones movie. And basically I wanted to make this video as a petition for people to reconsider them. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video, and a huge thank you to my patrons for supporting me. If you would like to consider becoming a patron, I will have links in the description below. Even as little as $1 a month really helps me out a lot, and I thank you guys so much for doing that. But anyways, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.